The Way of Will John.
6,500 people have died in the run-up to the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. It is the definition of a they don't want you to know, except we kind of want to know what's going on. Welcome back to the Way of Will John podcast. I'm your host, Will John. If you guys haven't seen Biscuits and Tea and our other podcasts here on the 11th Commandment, I don't know what you're doing. You're missing out on life. Let me just go ahead and have a sip of tea right there. Sport Tea is sponsor of the podcast, as well as Rode. Beautiful, beautiful Rode. Thank you. If you guys want any of that stuff, just go right down the link. First off, they don't want you to know. Go grab some merch, guys. We can't film at night. Okay, we can't keep the lights on until you guys buy some more merch. Some of you guys are rocking the merch. You guys are the first on the block. It just came out. It's hot pressed at the 11th Commandment studio. Come on now, get yourself some merch. Or it's that way. So go right down below and get yourself some merch. Now, this was a very interesting thing to research. And it took quite a while, because if you have even Googled Qatar and the World Cup, all you're going to hear is 6,500, 6,500. Boom, boom, boom. This number has been thrown out, and now it's being repeated over and over again.
Said more than 6,500.
More than 6,500 workers.
6,500 guest workers have died since the cup was awarded to Qatar 10 years ago.
We were a little bit more curious on figuring out what is going on. Why is this the number? Is it more? Is it less? Why hasn't it moved? Who's dying? Why are they dying? And how did we get here? So this is going to be pretty informative for most of the people that I think are looking into this. The idea of boycotting the World Cup is still out there, and whether or not that's a good idea, I think probably everyone should want to be informed before they make that decision, and what that's really going to do in general, because there is talk of that. Now, for some contrast, I bet that none of you have any idea how many people died in the building of the stadiums and the complexes for the 2010 and the 2014 World Cup. As we have already stated, at least 6,500 people have died. I have some stats from the BBC in 2015 showing that 1,200 people had already died in Qatar at that point, and alarm bells were already ringing. 2 people died in South Africa in 2010, and 8 people died in 2014 in Brazil. So there's a pretty big disparity between what's going on in Qatar and what happened at these other places. So that's kind of what we want to get to the bottom of. There's a whole other issue of whether or not Qatar deserves the World Cup, all of the FIFA scandals, a lot of talk about bribery, bribing FIFA executives for them to get it. Now, since the human rights aspect of this is what's getting all of the play in the media, and will probably get all of the play in the media before the World Cup happens, I think that's where we should center our focus instead of the bribery scandal. If we're going to do a follow-up to this, we'll figure it out. But let's dig straight in and go check out 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙 He is the chief executive of the 2022 organizing committee in Qatar. And he gave an interview on CNN. He said a lot of interesting things. So I think we should just have a look, and we'll start right there.
How inclusive is this World Cup going to be?
Very inclusive. Everyone is welcome. We are not putting any restrictions on any nationality or anybody with respect to their gender, race, orientation, religion to attend this World Cup.
So he goes on, obviously, the very first question. This is the first World Cup to ever be done in the Middle East. And so having spent a decent amount of time in the Middle East and in countries right around, it is quite clear that they are a bit less open on a lot of social situations than we are in the West. For better or not, it is a bit more frowned upon, and we're going to get on to that. But one of the big concerns for everybody going into this was how people are going to be treated, because the World Cup is the World Cup. It's inclusive just by its nature. Everyone from the world is coming, so you're going to have to accept the fact that people are different. Now, there's some sort of give and take, right? And he goes on to explain that. But I don't expect there to be a massive issue with what's going on there. What becomes an issue, and we're going to get into this, are public displays of affection. And he has something to say on that.
Would you recommend that somebody from the LGBT community hides their sexuality when they come here?
Qatar is a conservative country, and Qatar is a modest country. A public display of affection is frowned upon in general.
Public displays of affection are frowned upon in general. Now, this is one of the most interesting things ever. I'm going to guess, and please comment down below if you've been to Qatar or Qatar. It's one of those countries you just don't know what the right way to say it. I don't know how to say Qatar. It's fun to say, though. Give him that. Now, I have been to Qatar. I have been there. Stunning place. Stunning. Just like all of those places in the Middle East, they're stunning. And I feel at home in a lot of places in the Middle East. It's just chill. Now, it's a whole nother thing we're not going to get into, at least in this podcast, we're not going to get into. So I'm a black male, and it's different for a woman in the Middle East, a Western woman. It's different in general. So we're going to have different understandings of what it's like to be in that country. That being said, I find it great, but right, we all live in bubbles, which is part of the issue that we have in society in general, is that some people have no idea to the extent of racism in their country or in their friends or groups, because we live in bubbles. We live in little tiny bubbles. And if you don't fight the bubble, you have no idea what's going on. Algorithms are trained to give you what you like. Your friends are your friends for a reason. They like what you like, exposing yourself to different mentalities and thoughts. You actually have to actively do. And in order for you to do that, all you have to do is click the subscribe button on this podcast. Now, as I said, I've been to Qatar, and he said public displays of affection are not, they're frowned upon. One of the most interesting, and I've been to, and I don't know, and I need to make a count, but I've been to a lot of countries. I've traveled to 5 continents, and one of the most memorable things ever in all of these trips happened in Qatar. When I was just walking down the street, and 2 guys, they noticed each other. They said, "Hey, oh, bro, it's me, Mohammed." Okay, Mohammed is the most popular name in the world. Okay, so we're just gonna go with both their names. Mohammed. Salam alaikum. All right? That's what they said. This is what I have no idea. But you guys just follow me on this, because we have to paint the scene. Otherwise, you guys won't understand how strange this really was for me. All right? Once again, what did 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 say?
Public display of affection is frowned upon in general.
2 grown men walk up to each other, and let's pretend that this is the other man right here. And he goes, so the Qatari nose kiss is a phenomenon, and I know that the world does not know about it. The world is going to find out. You guys are early to the game. I don't know if people are not going to do it, if they're going to do it during the World Cup, if people are going to find out about it during the World Cup, but I expect if you see it live, because it's just so surprising to see. I wasn't offended by it at all. I was just surprised. That's what I want you guys to get at. It's like, now, imagine if you were in a coma before this year and you came back and everyone was shaking hands like this. No one's touching each other. You're not offended by it. I've never seen that. Why is everyone touching elbows? You can't touch each other. There's a pandemic and we can't touch hands anymore. It's just different in that sense. So it was the most affectionate greeting I've ever seen before 2 humans. Husbands and wives and kids and children have not greeted each other like I saw these 2 men nose kissing, as it's called. We're not going down the sexuality route. We're not going down that road right now. Okay, we're trying to focus. I just want to point out that he says it's frowned upon, and that was the most public display of affection I have ever witnessed live. Okay, so whatever. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 feels that Qatar's been treated unfairly, and here's why.
Do you think Qatar's had a fair ride in the press in terms of its publicity and the build-up to date?
Was Qatar treated unfairly? Yes, in my opinion, very much so. I believe that Qatar has been judged by the court of perception very early on. It started off with the size, it started off with the weather, then there was the issues of corruption, then there was the issues of workers' welfare. I'm not saying that some things are fair, and some things we recognize, and some things we believe that were challenges that we needed to do something about. When it comes to workers' welfare, we raised our hand very early on and we said this is an area that is challenging and we know that there needs to be a lot of work.
So, as he states, one of the biggest issues, first off, was why are we doing a World Cup in the heat? All right, boom, we got to change that. So now it's going to happen in the winter, right? There was crazy talks. They were going to build stadiums with air conditioning in them and all this massive stuff. And then you got the issues of why are we building all these stadiums there? Are they going to be empty? And then there's the issue of if you go and look at some of the events that have been done in Qatar in the past, the stadiums were empty. And it's like, we're going to build these multi-million-dollar stadiums, and who's going to play in them is the Qatari public, which is overwhelmingly foreign. And I'm sure most of you don't know this. The overwhelming majority of the people working and doing things in Qatar are foreigners. They outnumber the Qatari residents or natives by an absurd amount. And I don't remember the exact number, but I think it's around 70%. There's a lot of issues going on with trying to sort out and have a World Cup over there. But as he mentions, they kind of said, yeah, we kind of raised our hands. And, you know, this interview happened in 2019. The migrant abuse has happened for years. I'm not just saying that, you know, I don't have firsthand knowledge, but there are a number of companies, organizations that it's their job to find out if workers are being treated fairly, and what they're coming up with is not good.
Most of the workers are from relatively poor backgrounds. They're looking for a good job so that they can send money home to their families. That's a story you hear all the time in Qatar. They go to recruitment agents in their own country who tell them what their salary will be, often telling them flat out lies, telling them salaries that are much higher than they're going to get paid, send them off to Qatar, and when they get there they find out what kind of work they're going to do, they find their salary is going to be lower, and they find themselves trapped, because if they try to leave, either they're prevented from doing so or by their employers, who often take their passports, and all of the men we met had their passports confiscated, or they're afraid to leave because they have big debts back at home and they're afraid to go home without paying them.
Okay, so she mentions they take their passports, obviously. They've got them over there under false pretenses. And then when you get there, too bad that you're not going to get paid what you think you're going to get paid. It's not the type of conditions that you think it is. We're going to take your passport, so you're screwed anyway. Get to work. It's just, that's insane. So I just want to read you guys this stat here. According to recent studies conducted by Qatar University's Social and Economic Survey Research Institute, despite laws against passport confiscation, 86 to 90% of expatriate workers' passports are in their employer's possession. 90%. That doesn't even seem possible. So you show up to work. Let's say you work at Facebook. Is that a good? Probably not. Mark, Zuckerberg, have you guys ever, this is a wild tangent, but I don't really care because this is the way I will, John, and this is kind of how we want to do things. So if you guys have never seen, Mark Zuckerberg, right, is I don't know what his official title is at Facebook. He's the Facebook dude, all right? 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, rapper that I like. He's always getting into trouble. He's been in jail he's out now, but he went to jail for a long time. If you guys have never seen this guy beg to get his Instagram back on, it is he can't get the dude's name right. He cannot say Mark Zuckerberg. He calls him all sorts of Zuckerberger. The dude calls him everything. We'll throw it up.
Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg. Hit me up, man. I'm on my OnlyFans live right now. Whatever I did, my bad. I need to get back on Instagram. Do not do this to 2020. Mark Zuckerberg, hit me right now.
Zuckerberg, give 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, give him back his Instagram. I actually think that the guy's got his Instagram back now, but I find that story also absurd. Now, I mentioned that we're not going to talk too much about how Qatar, how they got the World Cup, okay? But I will read you at least a headline so you guys have an understanding of why the public perception of this tournament is like this now. All right. So it's not just one of, oh, the World Cup is, why is it over there? You know, it's too far, which it is far, and it's going to be expensive for people to get to because it's far away. I think they're doing things like waiving possible visas and certain things like that for certain countries, like they always do at World Cups. I don't know the specifics on that, but just going to read you this so you guys can get an understanding of where this is all coming from. Federal prosecutors said Russia and Qatar paid bribes to host World Cups. We're not going to deal with Russia now. The indictment claims Qatar paid bribes to 3 South American soccer officials, Brazilian Ricardo Teixeira, Paraguayan Nicolas Leos, for their votes in the 2022 tournament. Now, it says that Qatar paid at least $1 million and as much as $15 million to those 3 officials for their votes. Allegedly, right? They bought their way to the World Cup. That offended a lot of people, and it's going to offend a lot of different countries that feel that maybe they deserved it more based on their bids, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a whole host of other things. Quasi-slavery is building Qatar's 22 World Cup stadiums. That's the headline. What will it take for Saudi Arabia to abolish abusive sponsorship system for the migrant workers? And yeah, what Audrey from the Associated Press, or sorry, from Amnesty International is explaining is this whole kafala system. So at the heart of the abuse faced by migrant workers is Qatar's kafala system of sponsorship-based employment, which legally binds foreign workers to their employers, what we explained. So she had even more to say, and there was actually a testimonial that they got from an actual worker there, right? Because if we're going to look into this, we would at least want to ask someone who's there, or at least hear from the people that are there. And this is what she claims one worker said about what it's like to work at one of these stadiums.
Heart-wrenching accounts during the research of men who were from Nepal, who were working in Qatar, who, when there were earthquakes in Nepal in the middle of 2015, wanted to go home to see their family, to find out if their family was just alive, and were told by their employer that they couldn't go.
So, yeah, I mean, that speaks for itself. You know, if this is the way things are actually going, then I don't have any answers for what it is that we should do. And she goes on to speak about FIFA's role in this and what FIFA can do to make this better. And I'm all for FIFA helping out with it because it's a FIFA-sponsored event and FIFA's doing this, but how much pull are we supposed to give FIFA over a sovereign state? This is some tournament where men kick balls around. This is not it. We should be looking towards the Qatari government, towards the people in charge, right? To some degree. Or is it because it's private and it's a FIFA thing, is Qatar just not touching it? We all know, we all pretty much know what's going on here, right? Though we can read through enough lines to know there's so much money involved in this right now. No one's going to say it. No one cares. It's okay because no one cares. That's how we get to these sort of thing. It's all right because no one cares. Most of the people, it's not affecting enough people. I didn't know about this until, and some of you are just finding out about this, right? You don't know. We don't know, and the officials and the people there, and many of them are in positions where they have to take that job. They have to be there, and they have to do that. And there's so much money flowing around that a lot of things won't change unless, you know what? I don't know. I don't know what's going to cause that change. We will see. We're almost a year out. So I wanted to have a look at the actual statistic, right? Because that's at the center of all of the screaming on the media and all of the propaganda for and against is this number, 6,500. And so in digging, try to find where that came. Now, the source for this specific statistic is The Guardian. And what they have here is a breakdown of who specifically, where these people, these workers, because remember, they're migrant workers. And as they mention, it's not just the migrant, not just the people that are building the stadium. People at the hotels, people coming to work in the restaurants and all those things. It's all going to be filled with migrant workers because that's just how it works. And generally speaking, what they mention is that it's the desperate people who are in need that are the ones that are being exploited. And that's generally how it works in society, right? It's not necessarily someone who is incredibly rich that's going to get exploited by slave labor. It just doesn't work like that. The hierarchical structure of society and organizations and things usually mean that the person at the bottom gets exploited. So that's what we're doing. We're searching for equality, and then that spins, and then we get people want everything to be equal, and regardless of your competence and regardless of the level that you display. And that is also dumb because you want your best people to, to win because they'll produce the best things. So whatever. I'm digressing a whole lot here, but let's just have a look. The deaths of South Asian migrants in Qatar from 2011 to late 2020 by nationality. India has taken the biggest hit with nearly 3,000 people dying. Then next comes Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. So I found another article also citing BBC, citing the Amnesty International investigation that is simply stating that this number is way higher. How much higher, they're not willing to put a number on it. But I would expect as we get closer to the actual time for the World Cup and before the end of this year, that number will change and there will be a new number thrown out. I can't say, and now just in closing to throw it all together, there's a lot of interests that are pulling for power and pulling for things. And you got to remember, having been involved in a whole host of committees and organizations at a very high level, so I've served on the United States, the U.S. Soccer Federation Athlete Council for years. That is where you get to see a lot of things that are happening. And the reasons I wanted to be involved in that was to understand how things are going to obviously affect change in some way, to represent the athlete and to understand what's really going on. And there's always more happening than what you can see. That is the very first thing that you will learn, is that on the surface, it will be presented to you as something, and it hardly ever is just that. So when you see people calling for a boycott and you see them, you need to ask what their reasons are for that. Is that going to be best? We've already lost this many people. Is it going to be better for those people if nothing happens and we all boycott it? Are we going to be achieving anything? That's the question I really want to understand, because from what I can see, a lot of people in society, and we joke about this on Biscuits and Tea with the Black Lives Matter movement and all of the companies that were very happy to spend or to say that they were going to pledge $100 million here and $50 million here and tell everyone how they did that. Are we going to look back 10 years, from now and say that was amazing that YouTube, Twitter, all the rest, that all these people pledged all this money because it led to this? Because in the moment, it seems like it's just more fun for us to hop on a movement because it's the thing to do. It gets likes, you're on the same side, and everybody knows it's safer, it's more secure for you to just be on that side. From what I can see now, I don't know what the benefit of boycotting the World Cup would be, because I'm not sure that that's going to hurt the people that we want it to hurt or to wake up. So that's my biggest question for why we should boycott the World Cup. Is that enough? Does that matter? Should we look to do something else? I mean, I'm not saying boycotts aren't a good method, but is it the right one for this? I don't know. Maybe you do. Comment down below. Podcast over. Time to play some football. Later.